The concept of a game room is something that many gamers strive to achieve, a room solely for the purpose of gaming. Now everyone has a different idea in mind when it comes to the concept of a game room. For me, I'd want a large room, big enough to fit a good 6 bookshelves for all my consoles and games, a CRT TV for playing on retro consoles, basically everything before my conception, as well as a modern TV for all of the current day junk, or maybe even an arcade machine somewhere in the corner, some widgets in the middle of the room like a pool or ping pong table. And it would all be accessed through a secret door behind a bookshelf of all the manuals and strategy guides I've accumulated over the years. Having all of this in my house in one room would be a dream. Where am I at with that goal? An eviction notice would do me some good right about now. I live in a house with other people, which still doesn't explain the tree. But I'm also a minor, and because of that, I can't really have the game room that I dream about. Instead of one neat and tidy room for all of my stuff, there are 3. One of the rooms is my room, which is restricted to just a table. The computer room has a collection of stuff with no rhyme or reason at all, and the main room is where all of the magic happens. But I want to go over the other rooms first, because you're always supposed to save the best for last, which is hard when your best only deserves a C+. This bedroom is my living space. A bed to prove I exist, a bookshelf to prove that I know the alphabet, and a stack of Funko Pops to the ceiling to prove I'm worthless. But the main thing to fondle around with in this room are the games. There's a Wii, GameCube, and a Switch. And while it isn't much, it does satisfy all of the branches of gaming. The GameCube mans the retro games, which are pretty fun to pop in every once in a while. The Wii is the console that I grew up with, and having it in my room makes it so that I can play games like Super Mario Galaxy or Super Paper Mario in the comfort of my own soft rectangle. The Switch is there so I can play new games, or really old ones if I want to get funky. And while it honestly isn't much, it still offers me hours of fun right when I wake up or when I'm about to go to bed. While I wish I could give it a bit more pizzazz, I'm fine where it's at right now, but I am definitely not fine with where the computer room is at. I mean, the consoles themselves are great, but why is the Nintendo 64 on the floor? I always say to myself that I'll eventually get my act together, but I clearly never take my own advice. As I said, there's an N64 on the floor, which is only funny because it rhymes. And underneath the table are gobs of unused N64 and GameCube controllers. And because there's barely any room for console space, everything looks all crowded and confused. But as I said earlier, the best part is easily the consoles. I'd call this the retro area, as all the consoles here are from the GameCube and below. It even has the NES and SNES Classic Editions, which are convenient little ways to play those older games. But it still needs a lot of improvement before I can call this room acceptable to live in. But the actual game room is magical. Quite a few consoles are actually hooked up to the TV, the Wii U, the Switch, a PlayStation, and the SNES. The SNES is acceptable. A good portion of its games are hard to appreciate on anything but an SNES. The Switch is the Switch. The PlayStation is only here out of obligation. But the Wii U, I heard that still using it is punishable by death in some countries. The Wii U is something that people look at and frown upon, but I will stand by saying that this is a pretty good way to play retro titles through Virtual Console, as well as backwards compatible Wii games. So the only Nintendo library this room is incapable of using is the GameCube, and that makes me so sad I might just buy a third one. But the heart of this room is, and will always be, the console and game bookshelves. I often like to sit down on the ottoman next to the bookshelves and ponder which game I should sink my teeth into. Although I am running out of space on the second game shelf, so that isn't great. The console bookshelves has room for 2 more, with the other 4 spaces being taken up by a second Nintendo 64, a Sega Sports Dreamcast because it isn't Sega unless a deodorant gets involved somehow, a Virtual Boy because I swear I have a great personality, and another PlayStation from the other time I went for interdimensional activity. But oh boy, what could possibly be behind the console bookshelf? I think he's plotting. But this is also the room where I sit down on a chair and try to communicate with the outside world. Because the last time I tried doing that, my friend said, "I'm not coming over to your house anymore. I don't want to be forced to play the Wii U again." Which is insane. I only made them play Wii Party U because I thought they said they liked the party and I wasn't going to provoke the devil. There are also several little doodads on top of the shelves. There are a few amiibo, a box of Ring Fit Adventure because I don't want to show off my Wii Fit U box, Wii Sports because it's the first game I ever played, the Super Mario Bros. Game & Watch because I've always wanted to juggle, the Ouija, the original Game Boy model because of how important it was to the portable gaming industry at the time, a framed photo of Pikmin 2's box art because it was between this and Wario World, the Super Game Boy because we needed proof that God exists, and lastly the Super Mario Galaxy CD soundtrack because it's the Super Mario Galaxy CD soundtrack. The handhelds are on the shelves on the left, opposite to the consoles, while various DSs or Game Boys can be littered throughout the house. All the cases are on these two shelves. There are quite a few game cases in here, and I have no idea why there are so many. A while back, I pretty much had all the DS games in these, and I hated keeping them in here, mostly because I go over to the bookshelf wanting to play Super Mario 64 DS for some stupid reason, but whoop-de-doo, it isn't in its actual case. I never like it when I have no idea where a game is, which is why I have nightmares now every time I try to find a copy of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I should get a lawyer. And that's about it for all of my game rooms, and while it isn't anything that would blow your mind, I'm pretty proud of how I'm doing so far. As a person who doesn't have a real job, rarely gets paid large amounts of money, and only started collecting a few years ago, I'm glad I was able to get this far with my collection. I know that there are way better and way cooler game rooms out there, but I'm fine with this. It still gives people who come to my house a chance to say, "Why, that's quite a few games you have there." And while showing off game rooms might seem like bragging to some, I see it more so as a way for people to see how you express your admiration for gaming culture. And that's exactly why I'm going to talk about a bunch of useless junk that I bought in the past year or so. Or maybe I'll even talk about a few titles that have only caught my eye just recently. The Nintendo Virtual Boy is probably one of the most recent items I bought, and I'm so glad I finally have it. I know it's a useless piece of junk on stilts, but it has its charm. I have 2 games for it so far, Mario's Tennis and Red Alarm, which are serviceable enough, but they still don't warrant putting your head into this thing. But I do plan getting Virtual Boy Wario Land sooner or later, so hopefully that changes a few things. The original Donkey Kong Country on the SNES is great. After playing this game through Virtual Console releases as well as the Nintendo Switch Online service, I didn't really care for the game. But after playing the game on original hardware, I get it now. This game works perfectly for the context of wanting to play on the SNES, and all the other releases just make me go, but Tropical Freeze is right over there. Overall, I had a great time seeing this game for what it really is, a masterclass in platforming and atmosphere. The first Mario Party is one of my favorite party games ever, not because it's extremely polished or well balanced, but because it isn't. This game is so relentless in making everyone miserable in the best way possible. One second you're playing a friendly game of bombs away, and the next you're forming an unholy alliance to take down Yoshi. It's a great game to lose friendships over, and something I never pass the chance on when a couple of friends come over. Yoshi's Story is a game I think about a lot. It definitely isn't a Yoshi's Island game, but it isn't a modern day Yoshi game either. It's not even close to either of those, to be honest. At its core, it does have that basic Yoshi gameplay, but everything else is completely out of whack. I don't even know how to explain my experience with it because I have absolutely no idea what this even is. But Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix is completely understandable. It's a fine little title with a fun but short campaign. My only problem is how much of a hassle it is to set up. I have to whip out this entire mat and find space for it somewhere, but the only other downside with the actual game is that it's DDR, and you probably already know if you're into that sort of thing, even if it does have Mario's face slapped onto it. But regardless, for a DDR game, it's pretty fun. Super Mario Sunshine is probably the most interesting 3D Mario game to me. It's the most similar to Super Mario 64, but it does so much to make it different that it makes it feel like an entirely different experience. The atmosphere and gameplay go for a more relaxed style. Some people don't find the game all too fun because some of the segments are tough and unfair, but those are exceptions to the great amount of fun I have with this game through and through. But with this game, the criticism might just be justified. Wario World is a game that always sits in the back of my mind, and I want it to stop doing that. It just irks me that Wario got his own 3D platformer way sooner than other mainstay Nintendo franchises. And it isn't that bad of a game. I'll make sure to discuss it more sooner or later, but just know that this is a game where if you play it all the way through, you'll probably never forget the experience you had with it, for better or for worse. Pikmin 2 for the Wii felt like it took ages to come out, and when it finally did release in the States, this is disgusting. Nintendo Selects is its name, but I prefer to call it Satan. But honestly, it isn't that bad on the Wii. With a GameCube, you can go jump off a cliff. But when talking about the game itself, it's Pikmin 2 alright. And I still don't know whether I prefer using the Wii Remote or Nunchuck or the standard GameCube controller, but honestly, the development history and release is more interesting than the actual game itself. But the exact opposite could be said for Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. This is easily one of the worst games I've ever played. It's so slow and so boring that I can't get any enjoyment out of it other than overreacting to the stupid crap that happens. This is a Mario Party game, but if someone dropped it in the toilet and tried to clean it with an axe. And it's pretty obvious that this is the lowest point of the Animal Crossing franchise. Nintendo Land is a game I'm sure almost everyone's forgotten by now. It was a minigame collection based on several Nintendo franchises, and quite a few of them were good. It just doesn't have that much to it, which is a big problem that I have with a lot of minigame collections. Except with Wii Sports Resort. That game is untouchable. But this game doesn't really add anything to existence, except if you're talking about that Pikmin minigame, which was actually pretty fun. Smurfs 2 is a game that I have for absolutely no reason, and would you believe if I told you that it was actually bad? Game Builder Garage is a fun little creation tool, and this isn't some kiddie tool, it's a legitimate way to create simple games. I might not be able to make a masterpiece, but other people have been able to do incredible things. But then again, it isn't something that can make very complex games, but it is interesting to mess with every once in a while. But I almost forgot about cardboard, my favorite combination of potassium and sodium. And Nintendo tried their hand in the cardboard market a while back with the Nintendo Labo. These were contraptions that could be built in order to control actual games. I think. I own all of these, and I have to say that the vehicle kit is probably my favorite. It has just the right amount of building time, and the game that comes with it is basically an open world game. But the most interesting one of the bunch is the VR kit, mostly because it's Nintendo's first time tinkering with VR as a retail product since the Virtual Boy, and the games here aren't that bad either. These games had a surprising amount of potential, but it's too bad that Nintendo probably won't do anything more with them. Miitopia and WarioWare Get It Together are the two new games that I decided to pre-order this year, and both of them are as interesting as I thought they would be. Miitopia is Miitopia, you can't go wrong there, and WarioWare Get It Together was a suitable WarioWare game. And those are all the little factoids I needed to get off my chest this year, which concludes this year's little chat about the game room. I'll probably be back again doing it next year, but in the meantime, I need to prepare for the upcoming holiday. I'll need to wrap gifts, hide the frying pan from unwanted guests, and try really hard not to get addicted to Donkey Kong 94. Too late.